Hello everyone, today we have a story about Napoleon III and the Viscount of Persigny always makes me sad. Napoleon III was the nephew of the famous Napoleon, who was born Louis and grew up in exile, and was always a bit of a joke claimant. One day, he was strolling through town when a man ran up to him, knelt down, and pledged himself a servant to Louis and the Bonaparte cause. This man claimed to be the Viscount of Persigny, a title that he seems to have made up for himself. And from that point on decided to do anything to win the French throne for Louis, which seemed incredibly unlikely at the time. Together, they launched a coup in 1836. They failed, incredibly badly. In 1840, they tried again, and this time it was even worse. Persigny bought a diseased vulture off a homeless boy, hoping to make it look like an imperial eagle. But when they landed in France they were immediately arrested. Louis tried to jump into the sea and swim away, but they rowed after him, caught him, and put him in prison. Through all this, Persigny stayed loyal, writing to Louis in prison every day, and planning his escape. Eventually, Napoleon did escape, and with Persigny as campaign manager he was elected President of France in 1848, against all the odds. 4 years later, he declared himself emperor, and Persigny heads his government. For 10 years, they ran the show together. Persigny was so loyal that Napoleon famously remarked, "The Empress is a legitimist, Morny is an Orleanist, Prince Napoleon is a Republican, and I myself am a socialist. There is only one Bonapartist, Persigny, and he is mad." But then, France started losing wars, an election went badly, and Louis's wife turned against Persigny. Under pressure, the emperor sacked him, replacing him with his chief rival, and stopped speaking to him, despite Persigny's efforts to make things right. Fast forward to 1870, an old, ill Napoleon III finds himself at war with Prussia. Before he leaves Paris to go on his final campaign, Persigny tries to say goodbye. There is no response. Napoleon loses the war and flees in misery to exile in Britain. 2 years later, he hears from Paris that Persigny is gravely ill. Finally, he writes to him, "My dear Persigny, I learn with pain the state of your health. I hope that you will be able to triumph over this illness. But while awaiting your recovery I must tell you that I forget what it was which divided us in order to remember only the demonstrations of devotion that you gave me for many years. Believe in my sincere friendship. Napoleon." When it arrived, Persigny was dead. In a few months, so too was his old friend Napoleon. The following story. The story of Egypt's Mameluke Sultan Saif al-Din Qutuz and his right-hand man Baybars comes to mind. Qutuz was the Mameluke leader of Egypt during the 13th century Mongol invasions. While Salah al-Din deserves the praise he gets for chivalry and honor, Qutuz too deserves a bit of that. Upon hearing of the sack of Baghdad and the ravaging of Syria, Egypt stood alone against what was rightfully a terrifying foe. Hulagu Khan sent emissaries demanding Egypt's surrender, threatening its destruction. Qutuz had the Mongol messengers executed and their bodies hung from the Bab Zuwayla gates of Cairo. He immediately convened a military council to prepare and started by raising a war tax on the rich nobles and himself first before the general population. He then took personal charge of the army and decided to meet the Mongols head-on in battle. The Egyptian Mamelukes and Mongols clashed at Ain Jalut, which saw the earliest use of hand cannons in battle. The Mamelukes used them to frighten the Mongol horses. In the middle of the battle, the Egyptian flanks began crumbling, so Qutuz threw off his helmet so his soldiers could see him, drew his sword and yelled, "O Islam," and charged into the front lines with his personal bodyguard. After the Mongols were handed their first major defeat in battle, Qutuz planned to abdicate the throne once back in Egypt. Sadly, he was assassinated in a conspiracy led by his own power-hungry second-in-command Baybars en route to Egypt. His conduct in politics, honorable. His conduct in battle, brave. More importantly, he took a huge risk by antagonizing the Mongols and riding out to meet them head-on. Thanks for watching, come back again.